Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer, and in this video we are looking at the patch 7 builds that I made, and I'm going to be putting them into a tier list. As with the previous tier list for patch 6, I'm going to be ranking these kind of as a combined grade for how useful they are in combat and also on their story or like roleplay value. Now, one thing that's a bit different for patch 7 compared to patch 6 is I've included several videos where I was looking at the class, but I built a character within those videos. So this very first one, and then the ones here for the Bard, Monk and Paladin. Those were kind of looking at a class rather than a build, but I think it's worth it. Plus, I didn't actually make quite as many build videos compared to patch 6, so it was a nice way to kind of beef this out a little bit. So starting off with the Barbarian. I made a Dwarf Barbarian. This was the first video I made dedicated to a build for a Barbarian. Let's have a quick look. So he's a Dwarf, which is great. Gave him some extra strength. His strength is 17, Constitution 17. He's got great Weapon Master, and he's wielding a load of good stuff because we've got some new items also in patch 7. So in terms of combat ability, I found a save from when I was playing this at the beginning of patch 7 where we're fighting the Hag right at the end, and I think he's great. I've got a... we'll look at all this stuff we can pick up. I think I'm slightly biased towards Berserkers. In terms of his combat potential, I think it's really good. Though having a strength and constitution at 17 each seems a bit redundant since they don't really gain him anything. And Great Weapon Master is not exactly unnecessary, but we can't benefit from the bonus action attack on a critical hit or kill when raging because Berserkers can always use their bonus action to attack. He's got some great items. Everburn Blade is really good for him. Gloves of Power. Resistance to poison, Misty Step because it hasn't got the highest movement speed, Helmet of Grit if he gets down too low, he's got an extra bonus action which he can use to Enraged Throw and Frenzy Strike at the same time, or take a potion or something. So overall, I think it's really great in combat. However, there is no kind of roleplay thing to this. I feel like if I had some sort of story for him, some sort of background for him, maybe I'd put it up at critical hit. I've really grown fond of Berserkers in this patch. Because of his great strength, I'm going to give him an A. Maybe it's a bit too high. Maybe I'm just too biased. I could have had slightly better stats, perhaps. Or rearranged stats. I think it's really, really good. And I'm very happy with the Berserker from Larian. Next up is another Barbarian. This time a Dexterity-based Barbarian, mostly because somebody asked me to make a video about a Dexterity-based Barbarian. Like, is it possible? So I tried to have a go. She's a Drow half-elf. Good or decent dexterity and good enough strength, constitution and wisdom. Dual wielding, so she's got Rapier +1 and speed of reply, and some of her shtick is about getting momentum at the start of a combat, then using some of that momentum to sprint around attacking things. Now, for reasons I can't really remember, apart from maybe just didn't really care about it at the time, I didn't give her any rings or a necklace, which is a bit silly. Another downside to this build is that while raging, she doesn't gain any extra benefit from damage from using finesse weapons or attacks using dexterity, which is a bit sad really. So I'm going to start a fight. This isn't necessarily the best place, but this is where I was nearest to when I loaded the game. Well, she got confused by this Mossy Myconid. Thankfully she raged. Fine, that's fine. That's what I would have done with her anyway, probably. But when we see her damage, it's a bit lacking because of the lack of rage bonus. It's okay, actually, you know, 9. But the other downside, I can't really get to her right now. The other downside is that when she rages, she can't use her offhand attack because she's already used her bonus action doing so. One thing she's got on her side though is movement speed. 30 here. At the beginning of the combat it would have been 40 because of the helmet. Now she's going to take an offhand attack with her scimitar. Should have given her... well, it should have given her some momentum, which I was then going to use sprint to get over to Sovereign Spore, but that obviously hasn't worked. It should have worked. Did I not? Oh, I used it on off illusory double, that's why. That was silly of me. Right, anyway, so she goes. That was guaranteed. One nice thing about her, though, is being a Wolfheart Barbarian, she does provide support to the rest of the party, at least the melee member, or anyone within... oh, I've got to double check that. Within 10 feet. So, in combat, she's actually... yeah, she's lacking a bit. She can't use her offhand attack on the same turn she rages. Her offhand attack is only 1d6 damage anyway. We don't get the bonus damage from raging, and she's missing 2 rings and a necklace. From combat alone, I'd probably stick her at C. She wasn't my best build, to be honest. However, she did have a background. She's a bit of an angry half-drow, not very happy with many people around. And the fact that I actually put some effort into it, I'm going to rise it up to B. But if I had to pick between these 2 barbarians for combat ability, it would definitely be the Berserker. Next up is the Lightning Cleric, Light Having as I called him. And all of his items are linked to lightning. Or a lot of them are new items, in fact, almost all of them. that either grant him lightning charges or use lightning charges for something. He has a light cleric also, so he gets his warding flare and he gets all the good spells here from both the cleric and wizard spell list, I think. Flaming Sphere is great, Fairy Fire is good, Burning Hands is alright as a backup, and Scorching Ray, nothing to complain about, plus we get Radiance of the Dawn. I'm quite partial to light clerics, to be honest. So how does he perform in combat though? Because he is wielding a trident one-handed. Isn't great in terms of what you can be doing. Let's give him advantage as well, shall we? So obviously I've started the combat off to make it easier for myself here. Let's skip past the Starion. So since he has some lightning charges, he gets an extra attack bonus. If I had enough lightning charges, I could then create a lightning aura. But the problem with this guy is he doesn't build up lightning charges very quickly. If I dash, then I've used my action, and I've only got a bonus action left. Let's just show that. And I got lots of lightning charges now. Great. But with my bonus action, I'm not going to be doing a huge amount. So maybe I could use Lightning Blast, because I should. Yeah, I do have a cantrip that deals lightning damage. So yeah, in combat, outside of the normal cleric things, like what I built him as doesn't actually do amazingly well. However, I really like the theme behind him. I think this is probably a solid B. His combat effectiveness could be better. I mean, as a light cleric alone, probably at a B, but kind of with the choices of items, it kind of drags him down a bit because the items, they're great. I love the theme, which is why I'm going to leave him at B. Absolutely love this theme. Literally everything is about lightning charges, which I quite like. And I think that's why I didn't give him any rings, because from the top of my head anyway, there's no ring that either uses or gives lightning charges. So it could be a bit better, but I'm quite happy with him. I like his background, I like his theme, quite like his getup actually, the way he looks there. So for me, a solid B. Next up is Boltav, the Tav who wanted to run as fast as he can. This time I managed to fill all the equipment slots at least, and everything is either about speed or giving some sort of benefit below 50% hit points. So, I mean, his thing is really a bit of a gimmick. He has to stay beneath 50% hit points to get the maximum out of all his items. And his armor class is only 15, and he's going to be hit quite often, and his hit points isn't very high at halfway, at 18 maximum. He could suffer a lot. Obviously, he can run a particularly long way. So let's start combat with Gale here. Getting plenty of lightning charges apparently. So here he is, he's got 6 hit points left now because he's taken damage from this cloud, the Noxious Fumes. But he can run a long way. He might make a half decent solo character since he can actually run away out of trouble very, very easily and hide and take one enemy out at a time and then run away from combat and come back and all that. So in terms of that, it might be alright. But his damage output isn't going to be great. His offhand weapon is a dagger +1. He's not going to be doing lots of damage with that. His dexterity is fine. His chances to hit are all okay. So, you know, I can get off a sneak attack. And I can still run away. But when you're part of a party, running away from combat isn't really very good for the party itself. Jeez, this is just almost run out of the Myconid colony. If I hadn't run up to the top of these mushrooms, he could have run away almost completely. So yeah, I mean, like, the movement speed is cool and all, but as I said earlier, it's more of a gimmick than anything else. It's not really helpful to most combats. It might be useful in maybe 1 or 2 turns in the combat, like getting to a high place or running out of danger, but he's not dealing huge amounts of damage and he can't take huge amounts of damage. I made him actually just to see what was the fastest character I could make. So I'm going to put him down in C because he's not that effective. He's kind of cool, and he's got a backstory, just trying to run fast. I guess he fulfills that. Maybe I could argue B, but because of his, I'd say, particularly low combat ability compared to everything that I've got on him and other choices I could have made, I'm going to leave him down at C. He obviously does get sneak attack, which is alright, but I could have given him a better crossbow. I could have found a different short sword for his offhand. I could have had the short sword of First Blood, even for his main hand, perhaps. And who needs this much movement speed, really? After a while, it gets a bit redundant, doesn't it? So yeah, I'm happy to leave him at C. Next up is Bruce Tava, an Eagleheart Barbarian, Githyanki Eagleheart Barbarian. So as a Githyanki, he comes with jump and Mage Hand. Mage Hand doesn't come in so useful, but jump is really good with this guy. He's got the haste helm to make him go faster, and he's got a bunch of good equipment. The save I found, which is actually the same save with Boltav here. I didn't have the necklace yet, which would have been the Champion's Chain, which grants an ally +2 bonus to intimidation checks, which isn't so important for combat anyway. Got him the Sunwalker's Gift, since he is a Githyanki, he needs essentially Dark Vision. And Hammerhraft, which is what really makes this build work very well. As before, I'm going to start combat with Gale. Here he is, Eagleheart Barbarian. Let's rage. Unfortunately, he can't really jump unless he tries to use this. Could he get up somewhere? Do I need movement speed? I don't think he can get quite enough height. To be able to use Diving Strike, I do need to be able to jump down on someone. So that isn't going to work. So I'm just going to have to be like a usual barbarian here. And he's got a great Weapon Master, which always works well with a barbarian, because we can always have advantage on our attack. So let's go for this guy. Ah, we missed. It's unfortunate. So how would I rate him? The only downside to him really is his strength is 17. I could have put that down to 16 and perhaps had one more intelligence or some extra wisdom. Otherwise, I think he's great. Absolutely love him. And I love his backstory as well. Bruce Tava here. I think I'm going to put him in critical hit. I think I've been very biased towards barbarians in this patch. They're the new toy, as it were. But the patch has been out for a while. But every time I'm playing a barbarian, I'm always enjoying it. So yeah, for me, he's got everything we need. Eagleheart is great, jumping around with Hammerhraft, just dealing damage all over the place. For the next 3 builds, these were really looking at mods, as I mentioned earlier, but I included a character build in each of the videos, so I'm going to put them in here. So do bear in mind that Tavskir here, this bard, I've forgotten his name at the moment, Tavskir here, this monk, and the paladin are all using mods, and in fact this is a paladin here too as well, I believe. So these next 4 all use mods, and kind of because of that, I don't think I'm going to give any of them critical hit, because 1, the mod might change, 2, we might come out with a bard in the next patch for all we know anyway, in which case this is going to be invalid from now on. And 3, I kind of want to temper expectations, because what's in each of these mods really could be very different from the actual class that we get, and some evidence for that is the Barbarian, because there is no Wildheart in 5th edition. So Tavskir here, based off a fictional character in the Witcher universe, is a bard, and he is part of the College of Glamour. He's got a good set of items here that really help him out, though the boots could be changed, to be honest. But he's got some items that buff his healing, and as a bard he gets access to Healing Word. He has got Dark Vision from the Ring. He's got guidance, he's got high intelligence, so if you look at his stats, they're all above 10. In fact, they're all 12 or above, so he's got bonus to every single skill check. Some of the skill checks are very high indeed because of his expertise, such as performance and persuasion. And in combat, he's really good at supporting and even doing a little bit of damage. So he's got Bless from the Staff of Arcane Blessing, which is like a super bless almost for magical users. And he's got enhanced ability for outside of combat and inside combat. He's got Fairy Fire to help everyone else get advantage. A bit of damage with Dissonant Whispers, but he's also got hand crossbows which he can dual wield and do a half decent amount of damage. Also, he's got Crown of Madness, which is kind of cool.
That rubble needs clearing.
Let's just attack them. Oh, and he goes first. Awesome. Oh, he's nearly dead from 2 attacks. Oops. And he also gives out Bardic Inspiration, which is pretty cool. So how about he just drinks a potion of healing for now? So he's blessed himself because he's got the Whispering Promise, which he got from Volo. And now if he wants to deal damage, we've got Dissonant Whispers, which also helps control the enemy. We've got Vicious Mockery, which is kind of cool. The only real downside to him is that none of his spells use an attack roll, which maybe one of them could do with. And if I don't like the look of the spells, I can, as I've already mentioned, use a ranged attack instead, since it's not too bad. Ah, of course he misses. I feel like in this recording this video, I've had plenty of misses. So I like him in combat. I like his background, I like his story. I'm going to leave him in A. Perhaps I could have taken Cloud of Daggers instead of Crown of Madness, perhaps. We've already got enough control spells, I probably didn't need another one. But yeah, I like him, and I enjoyed playing him. So next up is a monk. Named him Lutzav. Didn't give him any sort of background though, just gave him a name. Didn't really give him many items. This was mostly to show off the monk mod rather than building a monk. So this is probably going to be one of the worst builds in terms of combat effectiveness. Well, one of the worst builds in terms of items chosen because I only gave him the silver pendant. Otherwise he's just got a quarterstaff, a light crossbow, and a robe. So yeah, he's a monk. He can attack a few times per turn. We use key points. And you can use key to force enemies to have disadvantage on your turn or to increase your jump distance, and also dash as a bonus action, but that uses key, which replenishes on a short rest. Let's just attack this dude. Return missiles, which is kind of cool. His armor class is decent because I gave him a high dexterity and wisdom. Oh, that was nice. Here he goes. Right, see if we can do this. And then using Flurry of Blows. Can attack twice. Ah, we missed. That was a bit unfortunate. So he's good at getting many hits in. Perhaps I could have given him the Gloves of Power. Having a bit of extra movement speed might be nice to run up to people, but he does have a half decent movement speed to begin with and can increase it with a key point in a turn. But he's never going to be dealing massive amounts of damage, and this might work by now. I'll have to double check this. At the time of using it, these statuses didn't actually work. So I'll try that again next turn. So let's try this again. Flurry Strike worked this time, which is nice. Oh, there's another one down. We're going to get up here, but we're not going to be able to use the third attack because I think, yeah, is out of range. Although did I start with Flurry Strike? Oh, I did. Right, so I've still got my main hand attack. Let's just try and shoot. Probably won't work. No, yes it does. So there's some turns where we fine and do well, and like I said, it's going to be really good against enemies with low numbers of hit points, getting many attacks out, but I wasn't all that impressed with the monk that I made particularly, and I didn't really give him any sort of background. But it's a nice look at the monk. I'm going to put him down and see. He's just not as good as the other characters I made. Nothing really too much against monks there, so it could have been better, could have made better choices. Next up was a paladin, called him Tavadin, and again using a mod, and he is a dual-wielding warhammer toting paladin with the Amulet of Misty Step, the Whispering Promise, some chainmail armor, and with the dual wielder feat. And I gotta say, I really like the paladin here. Let's try. Actually, let's not do absolute power because that would actually knock him away. We missed, unfortunately. However, yeah, it's really. I had to use a potion of speed to get him up here. I'm kind of messed up earlier. I really enjoyed the paladin. Let's just let these guys go. Nice martial character. So I think the mod maker did very well. Allowed us to use smites without having to use up our reaction ahead of time and all. So I've got 3 attacks here. Hopefully this will fare a bit better this time. There's 1. There's 2. So if you hit an enemy, they gain a condition, and then you can choose to use your Divine Smite. So you can wait for critical hit. It all works out. And then I get 1 more attack. Yeah, that's a miss. I mean, the armor class of these guys is particularly high. But there wasn't any particular background to this guy, I don't think. He's just the average paladin. So in terms of combat effectiveness, I definitely put him at an A. But since there wasn't really any sort of roleplay value to it, I'm going to put it down into B. But just because it's a B doesn't mean I didn't like it. I'm very, very happy with the paladin mod. Next up is Tavamat. I think earlier I might have referred to him as a paladin. In fact, he is a sorcerer. And he's also a Githyanki, so he could have the Githyanki half-plate on. He has proficiency in medium armor. Give him a bunch of nice. We've got the Gloves of Flint and Steel and the Ring of Fire, which work really, really well together. We've got the Circlet of Fire also to give an extra bonus action. The Spider Step Boots are not so important. And the Everburn Blade, who needs a ranged weapon when you are a sorcerer who is wielding the Everburn Blade. So what can he do? Well, maybe he can twin Enlarge Reduce. Him and himself and Starion. Oh, that guy. Whoops. Never mind, bit of a mistake. Let's go to the next turn. And let's start combat. So the nice thing about this sort of Githyanki here, and this goes for wizards as well, is you can choose to use some sort of melee attack with a greatsword, or if you really want to, you can use a spell. He's only got a few spell slots left actually. One downside with being a Githyanki is that he doesn't have dark vision, but he did pick up light, which will really help him out. So we've got Burning Hands, could help take him out, but you know what? I just want to attack him. May or may not work. Give him a shove. Obviously this didn't work out that well. The one kind of bit of redundancy here is the fact that he's a draconic sorcerer. I mean, the whole point of being Tavamat is that Tiamat is kind of where his blood has come from or something like that. So he's got medium armor, which means this draconic resilience goes a little bit to waste. Anyway, I think he had quite a nice story, very decent in combat, although in melee combat after level 5, or level 5 and after, won't be so good, but this is patch 7, we don't have level 5, so I'm going to put him at A. He's got great utility, he's got damage from Chromatic Orb, Scorching Ray, Burning Hands, and a bunch of cantrips, but also some utility with Enlarge Reduce, the Amulet of Misty Step, Sleep, Jump from being a Githyanki also, and these items are really, really good. So yeah, very happy with Tavamat there. Next up is Librarian Barbarian from Yata. So what is she like? Pretty awesome. She's got a suit of great swords, Ring of Poison Resistance, Mage's Friend, just your average Githyanki half-plate, Helmet of Autonomy, Amulet of Misty Step. Seems to be a common theme within my builds. And yet another Berserker. So we can start off with a Reckless Attack, which should make True Soul go silent, so she can't cast any annoying spells. Alright, now it's her turn. We're going to Rage, because why wouldn't you? Frenzy, not Rage, as a Berserker. Go again. Oh, look at that. Lovely damage. 1 damage short, but that was 22. Come on. With a critical hit there. So yeah, she's got it all, and she loves throwing books. So as I've kind of previously said, I think I'm kind of biased towards barbarians this patch, and I absolutely love her background, throwing books, and just being an enraged librarian. And berserkers are just good. There's nothing really bad about them. They don't have their downsides like they do in 5th edition. They can use frenzy anytime without any negative side effects. and so they get at least 2 attacks per turn. With the Helmet of Grit, she could have had an extra bonus attack if she was beneath 50% hit points or an extra enraged throw. So yeah, really happy with Light Barbarian there. The next build was Phytavian, Light Barbarian's sister, who is a fighter, and it just so happens that I made them together in the same playthrough, so I'm in exactly the same combat as I was just now. So she's got very high armor class. She's a battle master, and she's a very good battle master, and she took archery. So if I can find some high ground, I don't know how likely that is here actually. Maybe up here. Yeah, she's going to do okay. 70%, not bad. I mean, her dexterity is 16, so not quite 18. She's got the Smuggler's Ring, a Ring of Colour Spray, a nice shield, Rapier +1. And with these Battlemaster maneuvers, he should just die from any of them anyway. There we are. Weapon dropped. There's 1 kill. I don't have any action surge at the moment, otherwise I probably would have done it. Oh, let's get a bit closer. We can take an offhand attack. Kill another one. Obviously, they were both on fairly low hit points. That you're not always going to kill enemies with every single attack. So I'm going to put her at A. She is decent in combat. I think all Battlemasters are. For level 4 for her feat, she took the feat that allows you to learn extra Battlemaster maneuvers. And have 1 extra Battlemaster die. So she's really quite good. We're back to Light Barbarian here, who can't quite get there, but gonna enrage throw a dagger. Brutal. Anyway, this is supposed to be about Phytavian. Yeah, Phytavian A, got a background. Actually, I like that I linked her with one of the other builds that I made, and she's good in combat. And last up is Tavzik, the Drow sorcerer based around poison. So here she is. She's got the Headband of Intellect, Poisoner's Robe, and the Staff of Crones are kind of what make this build what it is. Plus she has some kind of typically Drow sort of spells, or at least I would say Web is, perhaps Invisibility. Plus she also does get Fairy Fire and Dancing Lights from being a Drow. So her whole shtick is that she can cast Ray of Sickness an unlimited number of times. However, that does cost her some of her life. But this is why she has the Ring of Poison resistance, which did quite well there, to try and mitigate some of that damage. So as a sorcerer, her spells are mostly quite good. She's got decent meta magic. It's quite difficult to go wrong with meta magics anyway. She's got guidance as well from picking Magic Initiate Cleric, which is where some of these spells come from, such as Bless also. So one thing that's a bit disappointing, the reason I made this is somebody, or maybe 2 people have suggested that I make, this was originally like a Warlock build, but perhaps I make it with a Sorcerer instead. And I think it fits the theme. She's got a green dragon ancestry, which kind of makes sense for her. So in terms of everything put together, her combat effectiveness isn't as good as the Warlock, because the Warlock was able to cast False Life whenever they wanted, which really mitigates the downside of the Staff of Crones. However, sorcerers can't get that. I could have maybe taken Magic Initiate Wizard or something, or even as a sorcerer, and picked up False Life, but I'd have to keep on recasting it and using spell slots, whereas Warlocks don't have to do that. So for her combat effectiveness, maybe a B, not bad, maybe even coming up to A, but the more she uses the Staff of Crones, the more trouble I get myself in, really. And also, from having a Green Dragon ancestor, she learns Ray of Sickness innately anyway, so it's kind of a bit of redundancy there. But I like her background, actually. Thought it did quite well there. I'm going to leave it at B, because I feel like this kind of poison build based off the Staff of Crones, even with the Ring of Poison resistance, doesn't quite work out as well as it does for the Warlock. I think it could have been better. So let me know what you think of these builds, which ones are too high, which ones are too low. As I said in my previous video, didn't say it at the beginning, I haven't got any in Critical Miss. Probably, I would argue, because if it was, I wouldn't make a video about it, I'd hope and imagine. But maybe I'm too biased towards my own videos. But I like this nice symmetrical pattern I've created. A part of me thinks that maybe I've got too many in A, perhaps. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.